Mhm.
Hi, welcome to our third mentor meeting. Dick Porter and Zach Luther again.
Aye.
We're here to discuss my cognitive development artifact reflection. And so what this assignment was is I had to, PBS has this website with these lesson plan resources, and I had to find a lesson plan on there and explain how like content's chunked and how metacognition's built in. And what we talked about this unit was like the brain neuroscience behind learning and how to help improve what kids retain with the assignments. And I watched a video of this lady, and she had done they like designed a house, right? First they went on Minecraft and they did it for fun, right? And then she added like a math element to it where the kids were learning budgeting and like having to reflect and kind of analyze what they had done and compare that with what the other kids were doing. So what this assignment was is it's called Decode the Electoral College and Predict the Next President, which I thought was very topical.
How fitting.
Yeah. So the content is chunked into three separate parts that kind of tie it together.
Okay.
The warm up is like a history of the Electoral College and why it is the way that it is, and how each state kind of got their part played in the college. And so I feel like that, metacognitively kind of encourages like it gives you kind of a background understanding of what we're talking about before we really get into the nitty gritty with it. Right. So they're already kind of thinking about like, okay, this is how this works, right? Like I kind of know about this from my parents, but I have a
Right.
little bit more of a background.
Right.
The second part is they are researching their own states
Okay.
representation and also like the big players like California, Texas, all that.
Gotcha.
Um, the website also had resources that talked about previous like controversial elections, like Bush v. Gore,
Yeah.
big ones like that, where you kind of see how it plays out and how the system works when Bush v. Gore was at like a tie or something towards the end. It was really,
Right.
really close.
And then yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely.
And finally, they use a cartogram, like a map of the US, and based on the background knowledge they've gathered, they predict who's going to win each state. And so
Cool.
the warm up kind of serves as like a benchmark of what kids already know. It encourages them to set goals about like, okay, like I know how to do this. What can I build on in this area? What do I not know? Type of thing. Um, and the cartogram forces like the reflective part. Like they have to reflect on what they've gathered throughout the entire assignment over this couple of days we've been doing this
Nice.
and draw on that knowledge um, to fill out their map. And part of what we talked about in the lesson was your brain, the neural pathways. Like
Mm.
the more they're traveled, the deeper the understanding is. The more you retain that information when you are having to go back down that same road to
Sure.
grab that information.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, Another thing that it asked me to talk about was cognitive lift, which is like support structures that help kids like jog their memory and tie things together, which is why I was talking about like the background knowledge, that warm up, I feel like is so important, giving them a understanding of what's going on and relating it to what they already know.
Okay. Yep.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Um, so the cartogram as well, there was a thing we talked about called germane cognitive load.
Okay.
And they say your brain can only process like three things at a time, right? So if you've got a visual stimulus, an auditory stimulus, and like uh, like a video or you're talking or something, it's too much. So they said it's very helpful to have like, I don't talk, but I put this map, right? And you see, okay, this is a red state, this is a blue state, and it kind of helps you visualize what's going on and understand, like if you're a kid from Texas, you might understand why your state is red when you look around. There's a lot of red states in your area.
Of course. Yes.
The
And they can like relate to it a little bit too. So yeah.
Yeah, of course. Um, Sorry, there's a lot of questions on here.
Oh, you're good.
The productive struggle is something we talked about where you kind of allow kids to work through things they're struggling with, and that helps them grow because you're not just giving them the answer, right? They have to
Mhm.
really work, and through that work, you remember we talked about the neural pathways are building.
Yeah.
So the productive struggle is that there's not a right answer right now. I mean, I guess there is now, but at the time of the assignment, the election hasn't happened yet.
Right.
So they have to think. They can't just like, oh, I'm just gonna go on Google and copy what the election map says.
Mhm.
Like they have to think like, okay, um, why do I think that my state's gonna be red or blue or independent or whatever? And they have to make educated guesses.
Mhm. I think it's important on that one. Or anytime I know where certain students might be difficult, might take a little more time to really encourage beforehand, before you even start the lesson, like, hey, you are going to have moments, right, where you might get stuck.
Yeah.
Or the purpose of this is you are going to struggle a little bit.
Yeah.
Be super proactive on that. You're going to be able to think about this for this amount of time. Like,
Mhm.
if you really, really struggle with this, like, don't give up. Like, don't get discouraged. Don't change your emotions.
That's a big thing. I've had with both Aaliyah and Ken. I've had times where they're like frustrated, and I'm like, look, just give me a guess. You can be wrong,
Right.
right? Let's just talk. If you're gonna guess,
Mhm.
tell me why. Let's the productive struggle. Let's think about why is this the right answer? Why is this not the right answer?
Mhm.
Like try to logic it out.
Yeah. I think it's missed, and especially the kids we have here. Like,
Mhm.
they don't know it right then and there. They're very quick to give up on it.
Yeah,
So,
it's kind of a defeated mindset about it.
yeah.
Yeah.
To be proactive and know that you're there with them prior to even them seeing the assignment.
Mhm.
Hey, this is going to be difficult today. Like, well, I'm gonna be right here while you think through some of this stuff.
Yeah.
That's good.
Kind of put the agency on them to think it through.
Mhm. Oh yeah.
The fifth question talks about how the order and progression of the questions support learning. So the questions that I identified were like, how many electors are in your state? Which state has the most? Which state has the fewest electors? What's a swing state? What are the swing states? And finally, who do you think will be the next president? And they kind of build from a local state level progressively to that. When you're ready with you understand the whole process,
Mhm.
then you can predict, right? If you only have the background knowledge of Florida, it's going to be kind of hard for you to predict
Right.
the
Correct.
president.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. I believe this is the last one. Yeah, here it is. Explain how this lesson might motivate students, use specific examples, and include your ideas. I think it's relevant because it's a pretty hot button issue. A lot of people are talking about it.
Yeah.
So I think it's something that a lot of kids say, oh, I'm never going to use this.
Right.
You're going to use this when you vote, when you turn 18. Yeah.
And I almost want to argue though too, it's like when I was growing up, obviously, and phones and social media wasn't around, maybe it didn't hit us all the time as kids.
Mhm.
So as we're playing sports or we didn't have that immediate access to it. I think it's more important that these kids actually know the ins and outs of this process, or maybe they're even more eager to learn about it because if they go on their phone, whether it's on X or Instagram, I mean, even on YouTube, uh, there's ads
Yeah.
it's all around us.
All over.
This last month has been crazy. So for kids not to know about it, um, and even though they see it every day,
Yeah.
hopefully that brings some type of motivation to learn more about.
It gives you some kind of context too. Like,
Yeah.
why is this so important? Why do my parents care about this so much?
Right,
Yeah.
right. So definitely good stuff.
Okay, so we get a second part here. This, I believe, was the one I was talking about earlier with the class doing Minecraft and planning their house out.
Yeah.
So the first question in here is, this was Miss Batista's class, and how is the project tied to the standards that she establishes? So she sets up the driving question, right?
Mhm.
That poses the question. She allows the students to use the creative process, which is playing on Minecraft, to answer that question. And then she gives them constraints that require them to think a little bit, think critically, like, the budget, and they have a client in this scenario. that has these specific things they want. So now it's like, okay, I can't just build my Minecraft house. I have to think about what they want
Right.
and what's, you can't put the two doors opening into one another. You don't want to put the bathroom in the kitchen, like that type of thing.
Correct. Yes.
Um, so they have to be mindful of those standards as they plan. We just talked about how the project elicits critical thinking. They have to put those constraints onto their creative ideas and use those standards to they have a peer review section and an observation section where they actually brought in an actual structural engineer,
Mhm.
and he kind of reviewed their project with them and talked to them about what was important in building a house. And so that um, after they go through that, there's like a difference you can see in the kids where they know a little bit more what they need to be doing and there's confidence built there where they're like, okay, this is how you're supposed to do it.
Right.
So now I can take my idea and make it more realistic.
Right.
The problem solving that we face in the video, again, through the question, driving question, they have to plan and use the peer review and all that to uh, correct the errors that they find in their projects.
Sure.
The problem solving process in this video is like structured, like we talked about, gradually builds to that ultimate conclusion. An upcoming standard that I will teach, I don't have a class, but if I was currently teaching, I found United States history and geography for 9th through 12th graders.
Mhm.
And the project that I incorporated it was natural disaster response planning in early American cities. So students break up and they have to choose a city like Philadelphia or something like that. And they identify a city that was like affected, like Sacramento with I think it was Sacramento with big earthquakes in the 1900s. Find a city that was affected by a disaster, keeping in mind the limitations on like technology and the responsibility, and plan how they would respond to that using their knowledge of the geography and the technology, plan how they would respond to it. They have to think critically to figure that out because obviously they don't have the same abilities that we do now. That's another part of the question is that they need to reflect upon what modern response tactics could be used.
Mhm.
So that was interesting.
Oh yeah.
Interesting.
Very good.
Project there. I think that would get them thinking a little bit. I feel like we'd get a lot of frustration at first. Oh, Mr. Porter, how are we gonna? What can we do about a hurricane in 1895?
Right.
I think I'll just end with the discussion questions. So I
Okay.
think we've talked about a lot of this already.
Perfect.
Something actually topical I wanted to talk to you about. How do you ensure accountability with your Zoom kids? Because I have spent all morning filling out a sheet for Josh, spent the other day filling out a sheet for Harlan,
Mhm.
and I'm trying to find ways to chunk it and make it not so overwhelming. But if I was in their shoes, I would be very overwhelmed, and I'm not sure how to keep them on track.
Yeah. So most of our Zoom kids, they didn't start at Zoom. So typically they're behind. Typically. So I know one thing that I've done is every time they complete an assignment to email their teacher that they completed the missing assignment, but also for me to get CC'd on it. So I can keep kind of a log on that. I do know if they're on Zoom, typically they do online stuff where when I see them on Zoom, I'm going over their session log, which whatever software, if let's say it's Edgenuity, which is the software that we use for some of their credits, that session log says how long that they spent on a certain amount of time. So
Yeah.
if they come to me and they're behind, or maybe they say they don't get the quiz, I'll go back and say, well, you spent only 2 minutes on this topic.
Yeah.
Right. You're going to have to go back and redo the notes there.
Right.
Or if they spend too much time on a specific thing, what are some things that they got stuck on right then and there that can help them for the future?
Yeah.
If they don't have those two things, then we're probably checking Power Schools, which is our grade system and our grade book, to see what they need to do during that. Like when I hang up the Zoom call, for the next time that we're on Zoom,
Yeah. What are we
right?
doing?
This is you, here's this checklist. Let's
Mhm.
get this checklist. Boom, 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 boom.
Yeah.
Right. So we can just next time on Zoom, we'll just go through and let's see if you did those things.
Mhm.
So it's kind of being a little bit proactive, but know that during the Zoom meeting, it's really not me helping them, it's me going through the checklist with them.
Yeah.
I think a lot of it to establish that to where when we hang up, they have work to do.
Mhm.
That's more important than like, yeah, I can help you with a problem on Zoom, but that's not what we're here on Zoom for.
Right.
Like we're kind of organizing what's ahead
Yeah.
and checking what you did in the
I feel like
past.
as you build that confidence with them, I had an experience with Aaliyah when we worked in Miss K's class the other day where she was not motivated to do this balancing chemical equation sheet. And both Miss K and I came over and kind of like I was having a hard time explaining it to her because I was trying to write it out
Mhm.
and logic it out how my brain would. And Miss K got her a these like little plastic pieces and we visually like mapped it out and then she understood. And then I didn't have to be so on her about doing it. She just was like, oh, okay, I get this now.
Mhm.
Right. So I feel like adding that support structure and understanding what works better for other people is helpful. So I thought about on Zoom offering like, hey, if you'd like me for my third period block to sit with you and help you work on things, not give you the answers, but you know, provide some support, I'd be glad to do that. Because I'm good at teaching test taking strategies and learning how to solve a question even if you don't really know the answer to it, right?
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
I thought about offering that to those kids, but I really need to get them on Zoom at this point. I've got to get the routine going every week.
Yeah. I think the toughest part is like distinguishing like that kid's. I don't want that student to think, oh, well, here's my Zoom call for today. This is the day that I'm going to work.
Yeah,
And they should be working every day independently. And I'm
absolutely.
there for an email, but it should be an everyday thing where I see that they're on their session log. So,
Okay. And the last question, what techniques have you had success with when attempting to get students to be engaged?
man, it depends on the kid.
Mhm.
Um, especially in the area that we're in right now, Mr. Porter is, the relationship building is big,
Mhm.
especially knowing that I think at their base schools with a whole lot of kids, the thing that they don't see the most is when they get in trouble, is when they usually get like, um, I don't want to say verbally attacked, not the word, or it's like as soon as they get in trouble, they're going to deal with the higher ups that or teachers
Mhm.
that provide
There's not
consequences.
empathy
And
there.
that's, yeah. Here, I think the thing that works the most is when they're not doing what they should be doing, or they do get in trouble, is we have time to dissect it and to maybe know that we're on their side, right? But here's some things why you could have made different choices and maybe model those things and have time to model those things to see if they could do it differently the next time.
Mhm.
As far as a classroom environment, personally for me, like I enjoy a little humor. I enjoy having good conversations. I mean, I try not to get too sidetracked, but some sidetracks are kind of healthy to keep that student kind of engaged.
Yeah.
It's not all just okay, let's just sit down and get right to work.
You get
I
some
think
kids that open up.
I think an open up and a happy medium of, you know, having conversations and questions maybe a little outside the curriculum but staying appropriate
Mhm.
can keep that kind of relationship building and maybe taking good pauses here and there, but maintaining a good pace of course is super important as
Right.
well. So yeah,
Awesome.
yeah,
Okay. Think we're good.
that's it.
Yes,
All
sir. Thank
right.
you.